Hello everybody in YouTube and welcome to another How to Win video for Arkham Horror the card game here at Playing Board Games. If you've not seen these series, we're just diving into various parts of the game to tell you how to look at it, how to evaluate it, how to analyze it, and how to use it to your advantage to win the game more. Today we're going to be talking about a concept that is a little bit more a little stranger than some of the other stuff. It's not deck building. It's not like resource value. It's just scaling. So with that, Travis, I'm going to ask you, what the heck is scaling?
Well, scaling is generally like how something gets better or in some cases more difficult over time. There's a couple things in this game that scale. The most obvious one is going to be like the power of your deck. As you add more experience cards into it. I'm mentioning that one first because that's not what we're talking about today. Mm-hmm. We will instead be talking about the how the game changes with player counts and at higher difficulties.
Yeah. So, the first question we're going to be talking about first is the difficulty levels. We'll be talking about the scaling with player count in a few, but right now let's just zone in on the difficulty levels. So, what do different difficulty levels change? The two obvious ones that maybe there's more that I can't remember off the top of my head, but bigger modifiers on tokens because your token bag is just generally harder, and then more punishing symbols on the reference cards. That's about it that difficulty changes, right? There's really nothing else. It's just those things.
I'm pretty sure it's the only thing that changes when you play expert versus easy.
So let's focus on these a little bit more. We're going to compare the starting token pool of easy and standard, and this is for the Night of the Zealot campaign because each campaign have their own token pools that change. Like Forgotten Age on standard has a -5, which when you play for the first time, you're like, stop it! It's ridiculous! And also because we're going to also look at standard to hard and hard to expert as we go. But we're going to focus on easy to standard as like our big first stopping point because we imagine a lot of people, when you're just starting this game and you're watching this video, you are likely playing on easy or standard difficulty. So let's look at these guys over here and then just like look at the difference for them. So easy, we have 2 +1s and 3 zeros compared to 1 +1 and 2 zeros on standard. So that means for these the modifiers, there are now like 5 tokens that you would call as outright good in the game because it's unlikely that you want to be taking a test where you're down. Like you're not like aiming for the +1. You're usually on par, if not better, for it. So on easy, all of a sudden, there's 5 tokens that mean you're going to be passing that test. Easy has 3 -1s, standard has 3 -1s, and then for the numerical modifiers, easy has 2 -2s, while standard also has 2 -2s, but standards has a -3 and a -4. We're going to be ignoring the skulls, cultist, tablets, for right now, because and the autofill on the other side because they are for all of them and they're just set independent on the reference card. But for you guys, Travis and Bryn, when you're transitioning versus easy versus standard, how do the tokens in the cup change how you should approach tests on easy versus standard?
Well, looking at just from my experience of playing the game, I'd say the average test is probably about 3. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's a very controversial statement. It's like 3, maybe 3.5, somewhere in there.
I actually can attest on this because I broke down Carcosa. It's usually 2.5 to like 3. So yeah, that's perfect.
So most investigators, in the skill that you're going to be using the most, whether it's your brain for mystics or your punch for the monster fighter or your book for your clue getter, are going to have, if that's the skill you're using, it's probably pretty obvious it's the one you're using because it's got a 4 in it, printed on the card. Occasionally it'll be a 3, but you might have to work a little bit harder, but usually 4 is where you're going to be. So that means that when we're testing at 4, On the easy bag, there's only like 2 of the number symbols that we fail on, compared to the standard bag in which there's 4 symbols that we fail on. The easy difficulty gets even more trivial when you consider that you're going to want to be playing cards that buff that skill.
Mm-hmm.
And getting +1, a stack +1 to a skill is not difficult, whether it's Holy Rosary or Magnifying Glass or Beat Cop. And if you're 2 up, you just don't expect to ever fail a test on easy, basically.
Yeah.
Barring the auto fail. And then potentially whatever the symbols are, you just pass on all the numbered modifiers. Mm-hmm. So you only really need to, like, for most investigators, for your primary thing, you only really need to be testing, or only need 1 modifier. Whereas on standard, there's like actual uncertainty with the -3 and the -4, where you still expect to pass on -2. That's where you're going to be aiming for, partially because it's so easy to achieve, but also like you could fail.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, so like even if you watch our gameplay, we play on standard on the channel, where if we really want to pass a test and we want to be sure of it, we make sure we're up 4. Whereas opposed to easy, where you're pretty comfortable at 2, up 2. For as well as just for people who might not know what we mean by up 2 or up 4, that means we want our value for the test we're making to be 4 or 2 higher than what would be a fail. So if we're testing 3 and we want to be up 4, we want to have, like, if the test is 3, we want to have 7 for that.
You got anything to add about that, Bryn? You just hanging out?
No, I've honestly never played the game on easy. Mm-hmm. So I have no real frame of reference for that.
Mm-hmm.
I played on easy once the first time I was playing with my family, and I was like, nah.
Yeah, never again, right?
Yeah, this is like kind of not fun.
No, it's like on easy, you are probably just passing pretty close to every test.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That being said, like, I wouldn't feel bad if you were starting the game and playing for the very first time on easy while you get to just learning how the cards work and the rules and stuff.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. And even just like learning tempo, right, as well as on easy when you're just starting out. And like what we're going to be talking about really later in this video really focuses on like the hard and expert level, even though we don't play on it. We're just like talking about the theory of it, but it even still works for transitioning from easy to standard as well, because if you're used to playing on easy, standard is going to be a lot harder, because like Travis said, if you're doing 4 to 3, you have like a 50% increase of cards that made you fail.
Might actually fail.
Yeah. All right, let's quickly just look at standard to hard. So have you guys ever played on hard, or have you guys just been standard?
I find so. Firstly, hard is very difficult. The jump in difficulty between standard and hard is pretty huge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that's not because of like the number tokens.
No, it's not because of the change of the number tokens. It's because of the change on the scenario reference sheet.
Yeah.
The skulls and the cultists and the tablets and whatnot do different things, and they're much harsher.
Worst things.
Yeah. A lot of the effects that are like, this is bad when you fail. It's just like, nah, you drew this. This is bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. You idiot! Why would you do that?
Yeah. Why would you do that to yourself? And you're like, yeah.
Give me the brain damage.
Yeah.
I usually play when I play by myself. I usually play on make-believe difficulty that I call stand hard.
Okay. Yeah.
Where you play with either the standard chaos bag and the hard side of the reference sheet,
mm-hmm.
or you play with the hard chaos bag and the standard side.
Yeah, I've done something similar.
Sheet.
Like I did easy 0.5 when I play with new players. We start on easy, but then we do all standard changes to the bag for them.
So which way do you pronounce as stand hard, Bryn, and which way is hard ard?
Hard ard.
Actually, neither of them, because that sounds stupid.
Yeah, I like stand ard.
That is the correct choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. But approaching tests on hard, the correct answer is to try not to.
Yes, and we'll be getting to that.
Yeah.
But so just like looking at the numbers here, you can see that the +1's gone. There's now 2 -3s, only 2 -1s, and a -5 has joined the ring. It's just coming off the top rope. So just something to be aware of for this transition. Not that I'm expecting you, new player, to be getting to hard right away, but just like to kind of show how the game scales to that. And then we go a step
not
further.
Just the new players, Justin.
Pardon?
It's for everybody, not just the new players.
That's very fair. That's very fair. And now let's look at from hard to expert, which really goes for it. So there's only 1 0.
I had something else I want to point out about if you go back a slide.
Sure.
Just looking at the numbers for this one as well, I think that there is, like, they did an okay job of balancing the chit bag, or like the encounter thing, versus the actual numbers in the bag. Because you get like basically the same odds of succeeding if you're up 3 on hard compared to up 2 on standard. Which is not that difficult. Your deck just needs to be more focused, and it'll definitely help if you have a bigger collection for that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and this is where we don't actually want to be making tests.
Yes. Yeah. So on expert,
My God,
At all, ever.
yeah.
1 0, 2 -1s, 2 -2s, 2 -3s, 2 -4s, a -5, and then essentially 2 more auto fails have joined the mix.
Yeah, so like here, if you're looking to make a test, being up 3 is like the requisite to maybe pass. Like if you want to be investigating with your book regularly, you're gonna want to be like consistently up 5.
Yeah.
And that's like kind
hard.
of a real challenge.
Yeah.
This is where is this on? You give me the slides for this one, Justin.
No, I didn't. My apologies.
Did we talk about not doing tests compared to or like the value of making big tests instead of
That'll be coming up. That'll be coming up.
Okay, good. Never mind then. We'll get there when we get there.
Yeah, basically we're setting the stage for how to scales and then how you scale with that. But yeah, so let's go on to the next one. So the bag's getting harder, but also as Bryn says, the standard to hard jump also comes in, especially from these reference cards. So on higher difficulties, the modifiers of the symbol tokens also become more punishing. So let's look at Midnight Masks one at a time. So we have Skull on Midnight Mask, easy standard is -X, where X is the highest number of doom on a cultist enemy in play. On the hard side, it's -X, where X is the total number of doom in play. So now that includes cultist enemies, as well as the agenda. So now, if there's 5 doom on the agenda, your skull is a -5. If there's 3 doom on the agenda and 3 doom on cultists in play, it's a -6 on the hard side when it would have just been a -3 on easy and standard. The cultist token on easy is -2, place 1 doom on the nearest cultist enemy. On hard expert, it's -2, place 1 doom on each cultist enemy in play. If there are no cultist enemies in play, reveal another token. So now it just puts doom on things. This is wild because we've only played once on a hard side, and that was an accident. It's crazy how creative.
We've done it accidentally once or twice other times, but yes.
Yeah.
Not intentionally.
The tablet is -3. If you fail, place 1 of your clues on your location. And then, oh my god, hard expert is -4. If you fail, place all your clues on your location.
Just don't fail,
bro.
Yeah, don't fail. Yeah.
Justin.
Pardon?
Say, come on, Justin, just don't fail.
Just don't
Get with
fail.
it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's when you're playing on hard or expert, the auto fail is no longer the worst thing that can happen to you.
Yeah.
Nope.
For daring to pull a token out of the cup.
Yeah, if you pull the auto fail, you're just like, oh, thank God.
Like, all right, fine, but
It only took one of my actions.
yeah.
All right, let's just take a quick stop at Devour Below, and I'll just go through these ones too, just to show kind of like in a different scenario how it scales depending on the difficulty. Easy standard skull is -X, where X is the number of monster enemies in play. Devour Below is just -3, which you might think, hey, that could be lower than -X, but X is probably going to be 1 or 0 on the easy standard. The -3, if you fail after this skill test, search the encounter deck and discard a pile for a monster enemy and draw it, shuffle the encounter deck. So like kind of like the same idea, but now it's punishing you on the hard expert side. The cultist is -2, place 1 doom on the nearest enemy. Hard expert -4, place 2 doom on the nearest enemy. So they just said, hey, those numbers, double it. That's easy. Tablet is -3. If there's a monster enemy at your location, take 1 damage. Hard expert -5. If there's a monster enemy at your location, take a damage and a horror. Once again, kind of showing that just drawing the symbols, it's bad for you. It's a bad time. And then this one's pretty simple. -5 for the squid. If there's an Ancient One enemy in play, reveal another token. -7 if there's an Ancient One enemy in play, reveal another token. Honestly, it's basically just an autofail at that point. No other penalty except for the fact that you now also draw the cultist. And then you're like, oh, frick. All right.
Yeah.
With all of this under our belt, let's talk about this. With harder tokens, tests become harder. On higher difficulties, making tests is bad, so making less tests, in the opposite, is good. However, you still need to grab the same number of clues and deal the same amount of damage, so your tests need to be more impactful. So the question here, Travis and Bryn, how the heck do we make our tests more impactful?
Well, Justin, with bigger rewards. Wow. This is why quite often when we're talking about card evaluation, stuff like that, or at least when I'm talking about card evaluation, I will be quick to point out that cards required to make lots of tests are generally worse than cards that require you to, or who reward you for making a big test. So cards like Deduction and the 45 Automatic, it's easier to make, assuming your character has like a base 5 book, will be generous. It's easier to make on hard difficulties anyway. 1 test at 6 to whatever the shroud is to get 2 clues for 1 action than it is to spend 2 actions making 2 tests at whatever the shroud is to get 2 clues. You'd also have to trade a card for it, but that's kind of what your cards are there for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Similar thing for the 45 automatic. Like, it sounds kind of stupid, but like, it's better to do 2 damage with 1 attack than it is with 1 attack.
Yep.
1 with 1 attack, and that's like, yeah, it'll suck when you draw the auto fail after I'm shooting this guy and pumping 2 vicious blows into it too. But like, that's just part of the game. It happens.
Yeah, you gotta take risks.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't, you're losing.
Yeah, that is part of the balancing of this, is like making those decisions, right? It's kind of hedging your bets. Do I have time? Can I afford to give an action's worth of tempo to make a second attack, as opposed to spending my second vicious blow on this attack and like potentially just throwing my turn away? For these skills that also give you benefits, they're also, if there's like -4s and -5s in the bag, having, say it's like a big pile of numbers and then you've got 2 -4s and a -5. It's better to spend your second vicious blow to get to +4 so you don't fail on the -4s, and you only fail and risk failing, losing both cards on -5, than it is to, make 2 tests at 3 up and then there's 3 tokens you fail on instead of 1.
Yeah. If you've watched our videos of our gameplay, you sometimes hear us say a phrase like, "I'm up 4. I have to dodge 2 tokens." Or there's another autofail in the bag. We're just treating the -5 as an autofail. It's kind of that philosophy for it.
A second way to make tests more impactful is increasing the odds. Playing cards like Grotesque Statue or, Jacqueline Fine's ability, that just make you more likely to pass the test. This also includes just committing cards to your skill test. Things like Take the Initiative, Inquiring Mind, like really almost any card in the game can do this.
Yeah.
Because for most Chaos bags, every point that you increase your skill number by makes you slightly more likely to pass the test, because you'll beat out 1 or more additional tokens that you draw. And lastly, we have automatically succeeding. These combo especially well with the bigger rewards and are the eventual conclusion of increasing the odds. You're just increasing them to 100%.
That sounds like good odds.
like Seal the Elder Sign and Will to Survive are so strong is because you just get to do it.
Yeah.
You just do it.
Yeah, like, it does suck when you're like, hey, check out, I'm going to investigate with my 2 deduction level 2s, and then you draw the outfail, and you're like, damn it. But you know what's not doesn't feel bad? Investigating with both of those and then just getting your 5 clues.
Yeah, it's true. So before we go on to the player count, how that scales, one thing is like, because as you can kind of see, when you get to hard and expert, you need to build your decks differently. So like, if you're playing this game and you feel like standard's the difficulty for you, heck yeah, that's why we play on standard, because on standard you can kind of just build your decks however, right? Like obviously more optimal decks will do better, but you don't need to like try to go as aggressively into something like not taking tests like you do on hard or expert. Your goal is to not take tests. Like your goal is to like not play the game, right? Like not draw tokens. But on standard especially, you can just do it because it's not that bad, but it still is a good difficulty, and it's why we play on standard, because I imagine some people when you're playing, you might be like, even if you feel bad about playing on easy, play how the game works for you, but consider as you're getting better, taking that transition, that step, especially from easy to standard. Standard is a great way to play the game, and it's very doable. It's very doable. We can attest to that. We have lots of victories under our belt.
Yeah. Do we not have a slide on avoiding tests?
No, we don't.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that now then. The other way you can get around these high numbers is to play cards that avoid tests, the higher difficulty, especially on expert cards such as Small Favor, Intel Report, Drawn to the Flame.
The Lantern.
The Lantern, level 5, 1-2 punch, Gravedigger Shovel. Yes, all those Yorick cards.
Look, I can go for days.
All of those that just let you do something, they will cost you more money, but they're, especially on expert, they're generally a better return on your investment than trying to pump up your skills, because you just get the thing.
Mm-hmm.
You have to pay a little bit extra, but you just get it.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to risking paying less and getting nothing.
Yeah. For example, a card like Connect the Dots is a card which on standard I don't want to say never, but I don't want to play with that card.
Yeah, but pretty close to never.
It's pretty close to never. Like I actually can't envision a world where I want to. But if we're playing on expert, suddenly that 4 money for 2 clues without a test is looking mighty fine. Mm-hmm. Sure, I got to jump through some other hoops, but it's nothing compared to what the game's going to do to me.
Yeah.
Or even something like a Working a Hunch. Like, sure, on standard or easy, that card is like pretty medium. It's not really that good or bad. It just kind of is. But on hard or expert, that card's an all-star.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I think we're done now.
Sick. All right, let's head up to the player count. So this one's a little bit of a weird kind of thing here because it kind of scales in a different way than you expect, and sometimes it scales positively for the player, sometimes it scales negatively. But basically, when you have more players, you have more actions in a round, but the game also expects you to gain more clues and deal more damage. You also draw more encounter cards at higher player counts. So that means that bad encounter cards will be seen more commonly. When you're playing 2 players, for example, and there's usually like 30 cards in a deck, an encounter deck on average, usually around that number, it's going to be harder to get through that because you're only drawing 2 cards a turn. So if nothing else happens, there's no surge, you get through it in 15 turns. On 3 players, you get through it in 10 turns. On 4 players, you get through it in 8 turns? Which means that like the Ancient Evils are going to come quicker, and in addition, you also will lose more actions out of your Ancient Evils.
Yeah.
So there's really no way, apart from like mitigation, to avoid that aspect of it because you're going to be drawing more cards. It does mean people have more cards that they can use to fight these bad encounter cards, and that sometimes the right player will see the right encounter card. Like if your Mystic sees this Terror in the Night here, it's a Brain 4 test. They just laugh and get rid of it. But if your Rogue character sees Terror in the Night, that's
Yes, eat it.
yeah, that's a card that's going into that be 1 of 3 to be something bad happening. But as you build your deck for a higher player count games, you need to ask what role do you want to fill? Do you specialize on one aspect, or do you build more of a generalist style kind of thing? So we're not going to get into what those mean, because we have a whole video on team composition, which you can find down in the video description. If it's not in the video description, make sure to yell at me in the comments, but I have gotten better about remembering to link the video, so fingers crossed that it's there. But generally, specialization is stronger. It's easier to get 2 players worth of clues than 1 player worth of clues and damage on for one character. Specializing also mitigates the risk of drawing the wrong half of your deck. Supports allow others to provide more than their allotted share of clues and damage, and generalists clean up the scraps. Anything that you guys want to add to this?
I think I'm good.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
As I said earlier, some scenarios are harder at lower player counts, while some are harder at higher player counts. For scaling with the game for player counts, team composition is the most important factor for the investigator's success. So this is like where team composition comes in very importantly, and why it's so important to make those decisions, and why the scenarios, the campaigns, even on our own channel, when we build as a team as opposed to us just bringing our own decks, we do better. Like when we know what roles we need to fill. It's always an important thing, and it's how you scale with the game when it's scaling for its player count stuff. Yeah. This would be the end of it. Like we're at the end. Do you guys want to add anything else about the game scaling with you, or should we move on to saying thank you to our viewers?
No, I think that that covers it. Like I wrote down my thoughts in the. I hesitate to call you a document, but
no, it's a document, Travis. Yeah, sweet.
Yeah, handwritten on a piece of paper. I sent you the picture of over Discord.
Yeah. But hopefully this has helped you understand scaling in the game of Arkham Horror. So scaling is, as I said at the beginning, kind of a weird thing, and it's really just like about how you can use scaling to understand how to win is exactly the math that Travis was talking about. And like the whole idea where it's better to be up higher on a test, which sounds obvious when you say it, but so is like play good cards is also like just like obvious when you say it, right? Just everything you do, every decision you make matters. So if you make these decisions with the most information you can, or the highest advantage, you're going to do great, and you're going to win Arkham Horror more. And that's a PBG guarantee. Huge thank you to everybody who watched this video, as well as to all of our patrons. Thank you guys so much for the support, both to our viewers and everyone else. If you want to support the channel, you can check the description for a link. You can also please let us know in the comments if there's any other topics you want to see us cover in this How to Win series. We do have more in the bank from the official documents that Travis has sent me, so those will be coming out in the future. As well, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, considering subscribing. We release a bunch of Arkham Horror content for new players, advanced players, and maybe not experts. We never played on experts, but all the standard players, we got you covered. Thanks for watching. Have a good one, and as always, GG's.